I'm going to be sharing with you lots of thoughts and conversation at the end. We'll have some time to have a chat. But initially I'm going to give you a small presentation on understanding resilience and those of others. It might be helpful today if you have a little notepad and pen next to you, because there might be some really things here that I share with you that may be worth you writing down and reflecting on later. So if everyone's right, we'll begin our workshop today. So what we're going to cover off on is we're going to talk about what resilience actually is. We're going to talk about how you may support other people to strengthen and build their own resilience, and also understanding what are some of the factors that may actually affect a person's resilience levels over a period of time in a lifetime. And in this presentation, as we're thinking about resilience, I'd like you to really throw the lens of this on whether you are a carer, someone living with a disability, or part of the disability community, as in being a workforce person or a team member within an organisation, really looking at resilience through those multiple lenses. And the one that really reflects for you is the one that you'll be thinking about as I work through some of the points of today. So I thought I'd begin by sharing with you some of my own story, very, very briefly, and why I feel that I've had a journey of resilience over much of my lifetime. And you'll see on the slides there's some pictures of people that have meant things to me and continue to mean things to me in my life. So you'll see my father, who currently I'm the primary carer of my dad. He's living with dementia, and Dad lives with me in our household 3 generations. You'll see a photo of myself, and when at 21 was diagnosed with a life-threatening illness, and again 5 years ago, and for my life I've had many occasions where I've had to draw on my inner strength, my own resilience. You'll also see a photo of myself as a young girl and my mother, and I was the carer of my mother for many years as she was dying from cancer. And in the bottom left-hand screen, you'll see a small photo of myself and my brother with our wonderful little cat, Blackie. And my brother was born with a disability. He was born with epilepsy, and many, many occasions over my lifetime as a family and as a sister, I've had to support and help my brother and continue to build all of our resilience at this time. So I feel I may have some things to share, some things to maybe think about and share with you in terms of how I've coped, but also maybe what I want to do is also link that to some research out there about what really resilience is about and what people are saying about it in terms of the presentation today. Really, yeah. So what is resilience? You'll see on the screen there that I've just put some dot points about what actually resilience is. It is the ability to successfully adapt to stress, and when life throws things at you, either circumstances, crises, events, the ability to actually bounce forward, and some people talk about in terms of bounce back. But later on in the presentation I'll talk to you about why I call it bouncing forward. It's not related to age or gender. You're not born with resilience. It's something that you learn and grow over time through the human experiences that you live. Resilience accepts and really acknowledges that through each event that we go through, it's like a muscle. It can grow stronger and stronger. And we know it's one of the keys to great health, so mental health, emotional health, physical health, all of those things. If people have a really good resilience, then it links to having really great health. So what can affect our resilience? There's lots of things that can affect our resilience in our lifetime. One of those things is time. There'll be times in our life where we go through lots of different things, and our resilience comes into play during those times. And also we may find there's times in our life where we've got more resilience than other times, and that can be related to our energy levels or to what's actually happening for us. Important to remember about energy, and later in the presentation I'll talk to you about how do you actually refuel and replenish, and understanding that energy levels change in our lifetime depends on what's going on. The other things that affect resilience is our mindset, how we actually look at things that happen to us, and the behaviours that we have, the thoughts that we have, and the actions that we actually take. The other factor that affects resilience is the supports that we have around us. That if we have great supports around us, we're more likely to be able to build and strengthen our own resilience. And it really is important to think about the quality of the relationships we have, and I'll unpack that a bit later. The other area that people talk about when they talk about resilience is our spiritual view. So what may influence our resilience, or how we look at our inner strength, if you want to think about it in those terms, is maybe our spiritual view of the world. And here I'm talking more than our religious beliefs, but also about how we see the world, the environment, the cosmos, the nature, all of those things. Also, our ability to think and to process things, and how we may solve problems, how we may adapt, and how we are flexible in terms of our characteristics, if you like, can enable us to build resilience maybe a little bit easier. And also, lastly but very importantly, is the good health habits that we have. How do we care for our bodies? And I talk about it in terms of rest it, exercise it, and feed it. So when we're doing all of those things, and if we're not, consequently our resilience, our chance of building resilience may be affected. So I thought really it might be helpful today to talk to you about some of the things that resilient people do. What is it about them that makes them more resilient than others? And then to ask you, as we're going through this presentation, to think about, well then, how can I apply some of that to how I see the world in whatever role I'm in, whether it's a carer, whether it's a person living with a disability, or whether you're a team member supporting other people in the disability community. So we're going to spend some time talking about some of those factors, and each time I talk about that factor, I may actually give you a tool that may be helpful for you to use at another point in your journey of building your own resilience and supporting others. So what do we know about resilient people? Resilient people know they have to look after themselves. It's key. They know they have to care for themselves first, or else they can't support others to the best of their ability. The greatest gift that you can give, and you'll see this on the slide, is a picture actually of a mum popping on the oxygen mask for her young daughter on the plane. We often hear this story about make sure you've got to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you can actually support someone else. And it is still remains a really good example of actually caring for self first. So the greatest gift you can give another human being, if you are caring, supporting them, whether it's personally or professionally, is actually looking after yourself first. You need the resources within yourself, so either internally and external resources that can support you to do that. When we draw on that and care for ourselves first, it enables us to shine and fill our cup. And I'll talk to you very soon about filling cups, why that's really important as an analogy. So just on the screen there, I've got a little quote there. Taking care of yourself helps to keep your mind and your body primed to deal with situations that require resilience. And on the bottom of the screen on the left, you'll see an example of that cup and some of the things that you can do. Take care of each part of ourselves as a whole is really important. So resilience is about a holistic approach, about how we think about every element, both internal and external, to maintain, keep and strengthen our resilience in times when we're going to need it. Resilient people know this. They know that they need to refuel and replenish. So what else do resilient people know? And you'll see on the screen there I've got a picture of a cup. They know that by filling the cup even overflowing, so if you imagine a cup and you fill that so that it's overflowing, resilient people work out that when that cup is overflowing, that's the bit they're giving to someone else. when their cup becomes half full or quarter full, they don't have the energy, the resilience to keep caring and to keep giving. So filling that cup is really important. How you fill your own cup is worth spending some time having a think about. So whether that's through having a massage, whether that's sharing a coffee with a friend, whether that's walking around your garden and picking some flowers and a small bunch of posy to put and on the table and admire and look at, whether that's going for a small walk even to the letterbox or a larger walk, or is it talking to someone and sharing with someone that's maybe living a similar experience to you. Whatever those things are, resilient people know they need to fill that cup to keep them going, to keep them putting one foot in front of the other. What else do resilient people know? You'll see on the screen I've given you a model that actually is a fairly well-known model around how do we actually understand and be able to put into context, if you like, how to cope with things. And this model is called the circle of concern. Resilient people know what to worry about, if you like, and what not to worry about, and they're able to compartmentalise that or make sense of it. So resilient people can say, yep, that's happening, that's not great, but I know that if I do X, Y and Z, I can shift that, or maybe I shouldn't even be worrying about that. It's actually not that important, and tomorrow when I wake up, things are going to look different. So being able to distinguish between what's the circle of concern and the circle of influence. So there are some things in our lives, and I know I've experienced this in my own journey, that we actually cannot change. And resilient people understand that, but they find a way to work through that, or they use other people to support them in that. So really being able to distinguish between those two things and build an action, a thought and behaviour can really help with that situation. But resilient people understand about that. They understand not to be non-judgmental to themselves and to have self-compassion, and they understand that adaptability and flexibility can be their greatest strength. Resilient people also surround themselves with amazingly positive relationships, and they stay and they get connected. So really, I think the research is really clear. This is a very important part of building resilience and keeping it. So having positive people in your life, people that bring that energy to you, and we talked about energy earlier, about the importance of energy in resilience. And being able to get connected and stay connected with other people is critical, depending on your life, what's happening for you in your life. And one of the things I've often asked people to do is, and I've got a circle there to explain to you on the slides, is have some time and think about who's in your, what I'm calling here, the circles of support. Who are these people that can come to help you either build or keep your resilience in times of challenges and times when you're upset or when things aren't going so well. And I've just given you some examples on the screen. And as you might even like after this workshop to go away and put some names of people in those circles that you know are there for you. And one of the things I think sometimes we need to remember is actually to go back and look at those names and say, am I really tapping into those people? They're there for me. Am I using them in the way that I know they want to support me, and how can I actually engage them to do so? Where this tool's also, or idea's also effective, if you feel this out and you find, gee, I haven't got, for some reason I haven't got that strong friendship network, maybe you can ask others to help you to build that network, or yourself, use it yourself to think about, how can I stay connected, engaged? So if I'm a carer and I'm looking after someone, of course the person we love, but how can I then build a network for me so I can continue to do this great work that I'm doing, caring for that person I love. So it's a really, a great tool. Okay, so the other thing resilient people know is they know how to make things meaningful. They know how to bring something to every day that actually brings, in my words I talk about in terms of joy. So for me, and in the experiences I've lived and what I can see from the research is resilient people find meaning and purpose in every day, and that can be wide and very varied depending on the person and the individual and the human. So these things, sometimes people think, oh, it's got to be this grand thing that I do every week, or this grand thing that I do every day, and I jump in the car and I go out and I go here and I go there. I think we've learnt through the COVID time that we're actually finding the more simple pleasures in life are the things that are bringing us joy through this pandemic that many of us have experienced. So thinking about resilient people, thinking about where can I find joy and meaning and purpose, that might actually be giving of yourself to someone else. It might be by doing something small in your day that brings you some happiness, and that's important to make sure that occurs, to build and continue to strengthen that resilience. So on the screen there you'll see a little bit about me. Through my journeys and building and keeping my resilience strong is classical music's been a pretty key in my life, and any time I start to feel my resilience going down, I may actually start to go back to that classical music. I actually play it every day. I've often got the radio on at home. So classical music. When I was 50, I decided to have a leap of faith and get my motorcycle licence, but I don't ride a motorcycle now, I ride a Vespa. But that for me, helmet on, gear on, bike on, and out in the outdoors and the fresh air helps strengthen my resilience, helps give me something that's joyful for me. And whilst I don't do it every day, I usually do it every week. And that's two of the things that I've found that have really been able to give my life meaning and purpose and really give me some joy. So it'll be different things for you. So good to sometimes have a think about how can I incorporate something joyful into my everyday. And I forgot to say that if you're interested in this sort of thing, there's a really great clip called Adam Fraser. It's on YouTube, and I'm sure MOIRA will share that with you. It's called The Third Space, and it talks about how we can reset when we're either experiencing something. It could be even in one day. Often in a day we experience different things, and so this little clip comes from the research from Deakin University, and it talks about how you can actually break up your day for a little bit to reset. When something maybe hasn't gone to plan, how do I need to change my mindset around that to show up, if you like, for the next experience? So if you're interested in that sort of thing, The Third Space. So just talking about bringing the joy, I thought I'd share with this little tool. I've used this a lot. I do a lot of work teaching staff about how to care for people in aged care and those living with a disability. And I've often given this tool to staff. It comes from the work of Helen Sanderson. If you're interested in that, look up the work of Helen, she's amazing. And it talks about good day, bad day, what makes a great day for me. And so even if you ask yourself this question after this workshop, what makes a great day for me and what do I need to have happening in that day so I can have more good days than bad, if you like. So a good little tool there. So what else do resilient people know? They know how to make a plan. Resilient people think forward. They think about what's happening now and what do I need to do next, and they might even think more forward than that. They might think, if that happens, what am I going to do? So resilient people seem to have this ability to actually make a plan, and then they might then think about, okay, what actions am I going to take if I need to, if that happens? So making a plan, really important in people that seem to have strong resilience. And even asking yourself, what's working well, what's not working well for me, and then starting to think about what do I need to change. So making a plan. The next thing people with resilience have is they learn from experience. They actually go through things and they go, I'm not going to do that at the same time. I'm going to do something different. And that's that concept I mentioned at the start about, instead of, we always hear this talk about bouncing back. and I'll often challenge us to think about bouncing forward. And this is where the learning from experience comes. I think about, I've got that picture up there of the bike, because I think we've all at some point learned how to ride a bike. We fall off, and usually the person teaching us how to ride says, well, you better get back on now, because if you don't now, you never get back on. So, look, same I think with riding horses. I don't ride horses, but people tell me it's the same thing. But resilient people learn from their experience, and they think about what they're going to do differently, and they've got strong reflection skills. So thinking about what's happened, what am I going to do differently next time, or just thinking about how they've learned and grown from that. So a really important skill to try to adopt if we want to have more resilience. Resilient people have a positive positive outlook, and they have a growth mindset, and they are generally more on the optimistic side. So if we think about that, if you hear that saying, cup half full person, cup half empty, resilient people tend to be more in that cup half full and more, and they have a certain way of looking at the world when things happen to them. I said at the beginning that resilient, we're not born with it. So these characteristics, these strengths, these aspects, we can build in ourselves. And so starting to reframe things and thinking about things more positive. What was the positive in just that happened? Sometimes in the middle of something, we can't think of it. We think, oh God, there's nothing positive in this at all. But on reflection and looking back, we may be able to find something in there that helps us to learn and grow and to cope better next time. So I've just described this as believing in hope. They have hope that, and I was doing a workshop the other week, and someone was saying to me an old saying, this shall too pass, this shall pass. And all of those sayings around nothing that lasts forever, in the morning the sun's going to come up, tomorrow we're going to breathe, we're still breathing. All of those things sometimes help us to actually get through that moment when they're happening. So believing in hope. And one of the activities I'll often ask people to do is even write down 5 things that they're worrying about on a certain day, and sometimes even putting them on a piece of paper actually helps take it out of our head. But you'll have your own strategies for that. But hope, positive mindset, growth mindset, and an optimistic viewpoint seems to be characteristics of people that are resilient. Resilient people practice gratitude. We hear about people doing gratitude journals, all those things. I think they're great. A lot of people get a lot of real value out of that. Resilient people practice gratitude. They can seem to think about what am I needing to be grateful for each day, and sometimes it's the most simple of things. So the first rose that comes from the season, to wake up and not feel you're in pain today, a loaf of bread that's freshly cooked, all of those things that can be seen to be ordinary can actually remind us of what we can be grateful for. So I've just shared, you'll see on your slides, I've just given you a little tool there where you can actually record, if you like, each day of the week some things that you're actually grateful for. And you'll hear about, I think it's Oprah Winfrey often talks about writing your gratitude journal at night before you go to bed, and reflect as you're ready to go to sleep the things that you can feel grateful for. Sometimes they're hard to find, but go back to the ordinary, because the ordinary is often where we will find those things. So how do we support others no matter what role we're in, to build resilience? So I had a real think about what would it be that we could do if we were either working in the disability community, or we were a carer of supporting someone, or we had a friend that needed some help with building their resilience. What would I think about? And I think it's these things, and you'll see on the screen. I think it's okay to say to people, it's okay not to be okay. There are times when we just don't feel okay. And I think if we acknowledge that and enable others to acknowledge it's okay, don't worry, it's okay. It's okay not to be smiley, happy all the time. None of us are. And sometimes when we do acknowledge that for others, that we give them permission to actually feel that way too. The other week, someone I know was a person they loved passed away, and they said to me, I didn't know what to do. And I said, you know what, sometimes just holding the space for someone and being there is all you actually need to do. So as someone is trying to strengthen their resilience, build their resilience or maintain it, sometimes just being there with them and listening to them may be all you need to do. The other thing that I think is important, especially in the work, if you're working in the disability community, is thinking about when you're having conversations with people where they're feeling really down, they're struggling, they're not sure what the next path or the next road is to accept that silence is okay. Silence is the time where people actually can, in a sense, work through things themselves. So don't always try and talk and solve problems and solve solutions for people. Sometimes there's a really, really great space to acknowledge that silence is okay. That's the human connection bit happening when we're just sitting alongside someone in silence. Don't be afraid of that. Understand each person's experience is different. So when you think about resilience and you're supporting people that may need some help or around maintaining or keeping or strengthening their resilience, think about how everybody's different. So there's not a cookie cutter response to this. So how I might feel, how I might build my resilience, how I might strengthen it. I mean, sure, my sons who are in their 20s go, my classical music, got to be joking, Mum. So everybody's going to have their own way to build and strengthen that resilience. And it's important that we understand people and we understand their story and we enable people to tell us about their story, because by telling us about the story, one, we're probably helping them work through it, because often people don't need us to find the solutions. They can actually find it for themselves when they reflect and they share and they talk. So really, really important. Understanding that each person is different, and as you help and support and care for someone, really have that at the centre of your mind. Assist them to grow their networks, their community, and that little circle I had on a few previous screens, really important. If you're sort of thinking, oh, I'm really concerned or something about someone you care for or you're working alongside, think about how you might help them to get connected and engaged and find their community or their circles of support. So really, really important. And then I think lastly, but not the least, is helping another person to fill their own cup with whatever that is for them. So whether it's walking in nature, whether it's having a massage, any of those things, helping somebody know what matters to them, that's really important, what matters to them, and so therefore what needs to be in the cup. And if you like that sort of thinking, there's an amazing person, and she's got a book, Holding Space for Others, I think, Heather Plett, and her book is amazing. So if you like that sort of thing, you might want to look at the work of Heather. She's Canadian. So we're getting now to the end of the presentation, and what I thought I would just share with you is my story, what happened in my story and what I've learned. And just to share with you, I found this amazing poem that I like. When we learn how to become resilient, we learn how to embrace the beautifully broad spectrum of the human experience. And I think resilience is about being human. And when we acknowledge that, we are going part way to help others and ourselves understand it and build it. So what I've learnt about resilience, and I'm just going to read a bit of this because I've put a bit of work into thinking about what I've learnt in my journey and this story of me from that picture I first showed you about all of my life events and personally and for those that I love and care about. So what I've learnt, some days I'm more resilient than others, and I accept that. I'm okay with that. It's not always easy, and sometimes we make decisions the best we can at the time to continue to put one foot in front of the other. I think I've learned to understand who I am and what actually fills my cup and what doesn't, and being really clear about that with the people I care for and the people that care about me. So that's been a really amazing and not always easy journey. I've learnt that my cup needs to be filled by a balance time spent with people and time spent on my own, just time to think, reflect, read a book, whatever it is. I've learned that the simple things build resilience. So that time where I jump in the car and I say to a friend, have you got time for a coffee? And we sit in the sun and we sit at their place or somewhere else and we have a coffee together. It is the simple things sometimes that help us build our greatest resilience. To relax, to breathe and to move. And though I'm not really a big exercise person, I've realised that I have to walk, and walk for me is a bit of a therapy around actually building that inner strength. To have a hobby or interest, to have something that you're passionate about. My mother was a florist, so often just going out to the garden and picking a bunch of flowers, and I fiddle with that, can be something I've found quite therapeutic, or something that I've enjoyed just on a daily basis. But have something that you think is just yours, that you do. That when we reach out to others, we enable them to actually help us. So really important lesson I've learned, reaching out is okay, and that by doing that, people actually want to help us, but we need to let them know they can do that in a safe space. So reaching out. And when we do that, we are fully human, and so are they. In the end, I'm human. I get frustrated, I get angry, but I have learnt slowly by slowly not to judge myself for the things that I've done or not done. The new day will always come, and this will pass, and these are the lessons of the story. So I thought I'd just end today sharing with you a poem that I found really quite powerful in my journey of resilience. So here it goes. They say beauty comes from a spirit that has weathered many hardships in life and somehow continues with resilience. Grace can be found in a soul that ages softly even amid the tempest. I think the loveliest by far is the one whose gentle heart beats 100 scars from caring, yet still finds a way to pick up the lamp one more time to light the way for love. Thank you for listening. I look forward to now having some conversations with you about resilience.